welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today I have a fantastic guest episode. I'm so excited to share this one with you. This was somebody that reached out to me a while back. I've got a lot of the interviews this season are ones I've recorded as far back as August. So whenever these are coming out. Anyway, I had a wonderful conversation with this gentleman a couple months back on men's experience with miscarriage. I won't, obviously let him tell his story, but he and his wife suffered miscarriage, and it's one of those things where I feel like men's grief is often overlooked. I've talked about that before. I've had people on here on the show talk about that, but especially when it comes to the subject of miscarriage, which is every bit as taboo as grief, death, and dying, if not more so. But the way men handle it, obviously, also very often overlooked. But we'll get into that in the episode, so I won't go any more into that. Before we dive in, as usual, I have to remind you of my Patreon. I don't have to. I get to remind you that if you go over to patreon.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula, you can help support me in providing pro bono work within the community. I have at least one client I've been working off and on with for quite some time. I've just recently been part of a team to help take care of a very young individual here in Central Ohio who is facing end of life and has no family. So if you would like to help her or help me help her, you can go over to patreon.com. For as little as $1 a month, you can help me out. But if you decide to go with the $10 or $50 a month tier, I will send out this. I will send you a free one of these. It's a beautiful little journal. This one I've been using. It's all filled up with my notes. Nice little journal with the logo on it. I will send that out to you to thank you as a gift for me. I'll send you a couple stickers too. I've got little stickers. And if you just want to buy those, you can do that too. If you go to NikkiTheDeathDoula.com/podcast, there's a link there to get all of my merch. I've got t-shirts, a mug, these journals, stickers. So please go check that out as well. That's another great way to help support me. But all that aside, let's get on to today's episode because I'm very excited for you to hear this beautiful and touching story with my guest this week, J.S. Loving. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited. I always feel dumb saying I'm excited. We just talked about that leading to this, but I am excited to have another amazing guest episode. This week, I'm going to have a great conversation with Jeff Loving. Jeff, I like to let my guests introduce themselves because you will say it better than I can read your bio. Anybody can read your bio, but I want you in your words to tell us a little bit about you, why you're here today, and, your place in the world and all of the things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me on. This is a great opportunity and I love what you do. And I'm just very honored to be here. But my name is Jeff Loving. I actually am the author of Holding On to the Light, which is a book that shares my story, my wife and my story through our journey of our losses. We unfortunately lost our two sons. And basically, I wanted to bring my story and my grief, my journey, to put it into a format that could be approachable by other fathers of loss specifically, that they could maybe see a way of how to journey through their grief as well, and come out on the other side. And so it's a fictional book, which is kind of interesting. If you read it, you'll understand why it's fictional. But basically, I was able to use multiple different stories from people that we know in our personal lives to put it in that context. And then I share at the very end our actual journey. And that's not fictional. That's actually this is what happened. But a little bit more about me outside of the book. Like I said, I've been an author for a number of years. My wife and I actually just celebrated our 5-year anniversary a couple weeks ago. We actually also recently were able to bring into the world our baby girl, Isla Grace. She was born back in May, and I am wearing my proud NICU dad shirt in honor of her.
I love it.
She was a NICU baby. She was in the NICU for 25 days, and so that's a whole nother concept of another grief journey that we went through. So we are NICU parents as well as lost parents. So we've been through the ringer in only 5 years. But we live out in North Carolina, and we absolutely love our little family. We have a golden doodle as well, and that's just kind of like a snapshot of us. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll talk about your book again. I will definitely put links to that in the description so my listeners can find it and become your readers.
I would
um,
love that. I would love that.
yeah, so I was interested, excited. I always feel weird saying excited, but I was happy to have you on my show specifically because I have a heart space for miscarriage and pregnancy, or early infant loss too. I'm on a board of directors for a nonprofit that provides support for that, and it's become something I've learned more about. But more specifically, men's grief is one of those griefs that is highly overlooked within our society because in Western cultures, specifically in America, we have that mentality of men to be the strong ones, be there for their wife, and have this, the stoic attitude, and they're never given the opportunity to grieve. And it's such a disservice to so many men out there. And I've been slowly hearing about organizations popping up and support coming up for men who've experienced loss as well. Because there's this attitude of, well, you didn't lose the baby, your wife did. But we both know that's bullcrap because you obviously experienced a loss too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if you're comfortable, walk us through a little bit of your journey of what it was like. You had two
Yeah,
early
we have
losses.
yeah, so I'll keep it brief. Like I said, I go into a lot of depth in my book about it. Our first pregnancy was in August of 2021 is when we first got pregnant. Naturally, we had no issues, and it was about a year after we got married, and everything was going great. And we were like, my wife always jokes, it's like I'm just the over optimist. So like when I was so ready to tell people, and I struggled so much keeping secrets. So when I found out we were pregnant, I wanted to tell every single person. But she's like, you have to wait until at least the second trimester.
Yeah.
So as soon as we hit week 14, I was like, we're having a baby, and I'm so excited. So I was very over excited, overzealous, and so November rolls around, and we were like, okay, we need to sell my car. We need to get an SUV to get like more family size
Yeah.
vehicle. Our first son, Davian, was going to be born in March. And so we were just like, oh my gosh, we got to prepare now so we can get there. A couple weeks later, it was just before Thanksgiving. It was like 3 days before Thanksgiving. She started having some light bleeding. And so we were like, I mean, this can happen in early pregnancy. Like she was about 19 weeks at that point. And we were like, it could happen like from some spotting and stuff that's natural. So we call up her doctor, and the earliest that they could get us in was like in the late afternoon. We were like the last people to be seen. Go into the appointment. They're looking at the ultrasound. Everything looks fine. He looks fine. Um, and then right before we were about to wrap up, she's like, I need to go get the doctor. So she goes and grabs the doctor, and then she comes in, and you could just tell like the energy shifted in that room. And the doctor just like sat us down and just explained to us how my wife's cervix had already started to dilate, and so we were like, what does that mean? And
Yeah.
so she was already 7 centimeters dilated, if I remember correctly.
Oh my
And she's like,
gosh.
you need to go to the hospital like now. So we go and go to the hospital, and we were like a wreck. We had no idea what was going
Yeah.
on. And we were like, what do we do? Can we save this baby? Everything like that. Um, we were in the hospital for 2 days, and she delivered him the day before Thanksgiving. Um, and so that was really hard. That Thanksgiving was really, really hard. And then obviously the next day we had to go have a meal with my family. Luckily my family was very generous, and they obviously my parents came down. We lived in Nebraska at the time.
Okay.
So we were about 3 hours away from my family, and my family's originally from Iowa. And so my parents drove down, and then my sister and her family drove down, and they made our meal for us in our apartment. And they're like, if you don't want to talk about it, we're just here. We just want to be present with you guys. And I just remember like going through that, having no idea what to expect, the emotions that came with that, like everything involved. It happened all so fast. It was like 3 days prior, everything was great, and then on the tail end of it, we're having Thanksgiving dinner. My wife is no longer pregnant. We don't have our son anymore, and now we're having to plan a funeral. Like just radical shift. And I just remember it just being like feeling empty and just void of all emotion. And one of the things that was really hard was while we were in the hospital, and I kind of touch on this in the very first chapter of the book, and because like I said, the main character is my personification, or like my grief
Yeah.
in a character. And one of the things that the doctor says on the very first page is he asks the father if he wants to cut his son forward, and he's like happy about it. And that actually happened. The doctor asked me that, and I was just like, no, like I don't know what you're even asking me.
Yeah.
And so that was just real. It's just like the lack of awareness of the situation. It was just not there, I feel like.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, our nurses were amazing. They were so attentive. They were so willing to go above and beyond to care for us, and that stuck with us both. Um, and then basically the following week is when we had his funeral, and unfortunately, my birthday was also like that following week, and what we were planning on doing was my wife had prepared a surprise 30th birthday party for me, and what we were going to do is we were going to reveal his gender at at the party as
Oh,
well. And so basically, the day before that party, we had to have his funeral, and
God.
the amount of people that showed up was amazing. Like I can't even express how loved and supported we felt, even in the fact that our nurses showed up, and that was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, you guys are amazing. And I remember at that point I wanted to write something because I've always expressed my emotions and my feelings. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. Like there's no question. I cry a lot. Um, so write something, but I just didn't really know what to do. I wrote a poem for him, and they read it at the funeral, which is really really sweet. But I was like, I just want to do something more for fathers, but I didn't know at that time. And so that after after losing him, we lost him at 19 weeks. His name is Davian, and it was really hard because our marriage went from this beacon of like hope and moving forward, and like we're about to have a child, we're about to like step into that stage, and then we step into all joy is gone, all intimacy is gone, all willingness to even just live is just gone, evaporated. And so many people, kind of what you told me or what you said earlier, was like that the men have to step up and just be there for their wives, and like they didn't lose the child, like why are you so upset?
Yeah.
And I remember that, like I remember being told by other people, other men even, that went through something similar. They're like, you have to be there for your wife, like she can't do this on her own. Or well-meaning people saying like, well, at least you had a baby, at least you were able to get pregnant, at least
No.
maybe think of it as like this is just in God's timing. And it's just like,
Mm.
yeah. So my wife used to work at a church. So she was constantly like surrounded by well-meaning older generational adults that we know that their hearts were like well-meaning, but like the execution,
Yeah.
it just never lands.
Yeah.
So that was
I
the first.
I
Oh, go ahead.
mention them, sorry, just briefly. I mention them on
Uh,
this podcast constantly. Like
yeah.
what you don't want to and again, you're right. It comes from a place of heart. It's usually older generational, but those things they don't realize how much that hurts.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, I'm sorry.
No,
Please
you're totally
continue.
fine. Totally fine. So fast forward. So that was our first loss. And we struggled with, like I said, pregnancy, um, intimacy, like just it. Somebody said like when you go through a loss like that, your marriage is literally on a razor's edge. It's either going to fall one of two ways. It's either going to
Yeah.
fall to you're going to break and you're just gonna go your separate ways. No hard feelings mostly, but it's gonna end in separation or a divorce just because the grief is so much.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna fall to your marriage is going to become that much stronger
Mhm.
that you were resilient enough to not necessarily cover up the pain, but walk through it together and
Mhm.
be able to be there for each other to
Yeah.
support each other. Because honestly, like, unless you walk through it, I don't feel people truly understand the depths of that kind of loss.
Right. Yeah.
To the point of like, there were days where I would be a mess, well, even not even just days, like an hour, I would be a mess. My wife would be completely fine, and she would obviously be devoid of all emotion, and she'd just be there to comfort me. But then, like, literally 30 minutes later, the roles would be completely reversed. And I had to be I didn't have to be, I chose to be the one that was going to support her in that. And the fact that we were able to stick together through all that is
Mhm.
truly a testament
Yeah.
to her personality and her resilience, but also to me, and just like choosing each other and like choosing to move forward as the couple. So fast forward, um, in May of 2022, we ended up deciding to move across the country because we just needed to change the scenery.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we bought our house on FaceTime and moved out to North Carolina on a whim.
Ah!
So we were like, why not?
Yeah.
Have no family here, have no ties here whatsoever. We went on our honeymoon to Asheville. That was like our only tie to.
Oh, Asheville's beautiful though.
I
So
I love Asheville. It's
kudos to you.
wonderful. Yes. So we don't live in Asheville, but we live about 2 hours away. It's a beautiful area that we live in. Like I said, bought our house, and we're still kind of coming out of that grief with Damien. And we knew we wanted to try again. We knew we wanted to have kids, and so we started seeing a doctor. She was high risk, obviously, because she had
Right.
like had a loss, so she was automatically put into the high risk category. We found a local doctor that was more holistic doctor who actually after our first loss we met our doula. Um, her name is Cami. She's up in Indiana. She's amazing. I honestly like, and I tell this to people, I was very hesitant to hire her. I was like, what's
Okay.
a doula going to do for us? Like, I don't trust this woman. I don't know what she does.
Mhm.
I'm not convinced. And she sat down with us and she like went through her entire plan. It was like I think it was like a 12-week course or something just to teach about women's health and infertility and
Mhm.
how like pregnancy journey and like just everything. She covers everything. And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, just trust me. And if you're not satisfied, like we can revisit it. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I trust you. And now she's one of our best and closest friends. And like
Thank you.
I absolutely loved her. I will text her and be like, Cammy, I need your advice on this. What's
Oh,
happening? So and our next two pregnancies, I was very in touch with Cami all the time, which is really great. And she was always willing to answer our questions, even if they were redundant or it was the same
yeah.
question 5 times over. But anyway, she actually helped us find a more holistic doctor because we wanted to kind of move in that direction. So we found one here, and our nurses and our doctors were amazing. Um, and we tried to get pregnant naturally, and she was having a really hard time. Wasn't able to get pregnant. She was having a longer recovery from the first pregnancy, and then we tried letrozole, and that worked the very first time. And we're like, okay, this is the way to do it, I guess.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it happened in August. So our second son, Jaden, was going to be born in March, exactly 7 days after his brother. And so it was like, okay, here we go again. And it's like almost like a week difference from their pregnancy journey. And so we were here this time and we're like, okay, we have a supportive doctors. They've got us on progesterone. Like we're going to make this work. And one of the things that I will say about the doctors in our first pregnancy in Nebraska, he told us if we were to ever get pregnant again, that we should request a cerclage surgery to be done. Which if somebody doesn't know what cerclage is, it's a very non-invasive procedure where they basically sew the woman's cervix shut
Yeah.
so that she can go full term,
Yeah.
theoretically go full term.
Mhm.
And he told us it has like a 95% success rate, um, little to no like issues. And we're like, great. He's like, get it at like 12 to 14 weeks and you should be fine. And we're like, okay. So we went to our doctor and we said at week 8 appointment, we were like, we would like to schedule a cerclage for week 12. And they were like, well, we can't do that here, but we can send you to a specialty clinic, a fetal maternal medicine, which is high risk, which, okay, that makes sense. Like they do surgeries there. And we meet with that guy, and that doctor basically reviews my wife's medical history and concludes that he is not convinced that she has cervical incompetence. Because what had happened with Davian was she got an amniocentesis, which is basically a very long needle that they stick into um, the amniotic sac and they draw out fluid, and they tested positive for an infection. So they were like, he was like, I think it might have been an infection that caused her to go early and have her cervix dilate early. So he said he was not convinced and that he did not want to do a cerclage preemptively. And we were not, it was looking back on it, I feel like we should have been more aggressive with our wanting of that. And he
Yeah.
said, you can go for a second opinion, but we're like, well, you're the specialist and we trust you. And I regret that decision to this day. Um, because we're going through it all and everything. And in November, we go to our appointment. It was week 17. And she she was getting monitored every 2 weeks starting at week 17. And so we went in and they measure her cervix length, and she's at like, I believe it was like 4.2 centimeters or something like that, for cervical length, which is great. And so basically, Thanksgiving was 2 weeks away. So we go in for our next appointment, which is, he was like, I want to see you in a week to make sure everything is okay. So we go in, um, or sorry, I apologize. We go in 2 weeks later. So we go 2 weeks later. It's not the same doctor. It's his partner. He measures her. She goes from 4.2 down to 2.9 in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we were like, can we get the cerclage, please? Like,
Yeah.
this is like really stressful. This is week 18 that we did. Yeah, we started week 15. This is week 18 that we did this. And we're like, it went down almost 2 full centimeters. Like, we would like to get this cerclage. And their policy was that they don't want to do it unless it's under 2.5. And then it would be an emergency cerclage. The very next week, he said, you can come back in a week. So we come back the next week. It goes from 2.9 to 2.7. And I was like, we want this cerclage. And he's like, well, it's not under 2.5. And I was like, we would like this cerclage. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. You can get a second opinion. And then he asked, would you like to come back next week or in 2 weeks? And we were like, we want it done today, I guess. Like, if you're not going to do it, I guess we'll just wait a week. And that was on a Wednesday. And that weekend, it was the first weekend of December. And we were just hanging out at home. And like week 19 for us it's such a hard week in the pregnancy journey because that's when we lost Adrian. So already our stress is like beyond what you can even imagine. My birthday is also tainted with that. So my birthday was on that Sunday. We go through my whole day of my birthday. I'm like, oh, finally, I have like a regular birthday in the last 2 years. This is great. And so we hung out with some friends that night. And then at 11 p.m. that night, my wife calls me into the bathroom and says, like, hey, I need you to come check this. And so I come in and she's like, do you see what I see? And I look down and sure enough, the amniotic sac was starting to bulge. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, I'm going to sit on the bed, see if it leaks or not, and we'll make a decision after that. So about an hour later, we were like, we need to go to the hospital. So we rushed to the hospital. And I just remember driving across town. She's like mortified, upset, crying in the passenger seat. I'm literally screaming, like hitting the steering wheel. Like this is playing out exactly like it did 2 years prior. We had no idea what was happening. We were about to lose our second son from a very avoidable situation. And so we get to the hospital and they admit her and everything. And the next day, and they basically tried to put her bed so her head was down. So it was like her feet were elevated to try
Okay.
and keep the baby in. And the next morning was a Monday. We were in the hospital. Our nurse was amazing again. And she asked me to go get us some food. So I go downstairs to get some food. While I'm gone, that specialist that had told us a few days prior that he wasn't going to do cerclage, apparently he just walks into the room without our consent. I was not in the room. My wife was like, I don't want you here. He just basically disregards that and just starts to go into conversation of this is what's happening. You're about to lose your baby. Based on the laws in North Carolina, I'm not sure if we can like move towards an abortion. Um, Next steps, you're going to lose this baby, but in the future, I suggest that you do an abdominal stitch, which is basically a cerclage, but like you would have to get a C-section afterwards because it basically is above your cervix that they would stitch. He does all of it, draws out a whole thing, a diagram. I'm gone for 10 minutes, maybe. He's gone. He leaves the room. I'm coming back up the hallway and he makes eye contact with me. I'm like, I don't want to look at you. But I had no idea what had just happened. He didn't say anything to me. That was the last time I've ever seen this man. I walk in the room. My wife is beside herself. She is literally like mortified. And our nurse is trying to console her and they fill me in. I'm like, I run out of the room. I'm looking for this guy because I'm about to like take him out. And he was gone. And so our actual nurse or our actual doctor that was like our regular doctor that we usually saw outside the specialist, she comes in and she's like, I've heard what happened. If you want to transfer to the higher level NICU in town, I'm all for that because I feel like if you're going to have this baby and he's able to survive, you're going to be transferred anyway. And she's like, would you like to do that? And without missing a beat, we both were like, where's the paperwork? We want to get out of here as soon as
Yeah.
possible. So we get transferred to the bigger NICU. Um, Fast forward, long story short, um, they tell us that he's gonna be born, and we deliver him a couple days later. And the staff there were so attentive. They were so like patient with us. Like honestly, I look back on it like I feel like we were treated like royalty because they knew our situation and they heard what we had gone through, and that this is our second loss. And those nurses were amazing. I still talk about those nurses. Um, and so basically, like I said at the beginning, that we had a bereavement coordinator come in. Her name was literally Angel. And so, and we still keep in contact with her and she's an amazing woman. She does her job so well. And she knows how to mix the grief with the humor. She brings humor into a lot of things. And so she was able to bring us out of that. Um, to the point where my family drove down 18 hours when they found out that we were having him. Her family drove down 6 hours from Maryland when they found out. And then her best friend, who is also a doula, drove down from Ohio. And so it's like we just wanted to make sure that Jaden was not born before all of our people got there. And luckily he was able to hold on. But I just think of the funny story I think about Angel was that we had told her his name, but we hadn't told my family yet. And so we we were going through like outfits that he was gonna be dressed up and like she was like, you can pick out these outfits and we can do pictures of him after he's born and stuff. And so we are picking out outfits and she was like, so I think Jaden would look really, really great in this outfit. And my mom, again, she had no idea what his name was at that point. And she looks at me, she's like, what are we supposed to know his name? And Angel's face just went white as a sheet, and she's like, "I mean, Jacletus." And we were just like, "Where in the heck did you come up with Jacletus?" And so, like, that just, oh my gosh, it just broke the mood of like the dole and like the grief moment of just like having that joy of just like laughing about just something super funny. And so we actually have a little bear that has his heartbeat in it, and his nickname is Jacletus. And so it's like it's just a way that we just remind ourselves of that even in the deep pain and grief that we can find joy and humor. And so and then he would, like I said, he was born shortly after that, and we were able to just be with him. And they let us stay for a couple extra days, and they moved us over into a different room, and it was just really hard. But honestly, compared to the first one, our first pregnancy, we just felt like we did everything that we could in our power, and we just weren't listened to by the medical staff.
Yeah.
And we we had hope, and the journey through that pregnancy loss was still hard, but it was like we've been here before, unfortunately, so we know what to expect. We know what these emotions are going to be. And then after that, that's when I was like, I know what I want to do, because I want to help other fathers of loss
Yeah.
have this feeling that I have right now. And one of the biggest things I remember, and I never ever want to forget to ever mention this, is a week after my wife delivered Jaden, we were meeting with our doctor that was like our new doctor at this new hospital. And I will say her name. Her name was Dr. White. And we were sitting in her office, and we were going through like postpartum, like post delivery. And oh my gosh, that woman is amazing. Um, and she was just caring for my wife so much. And as a dad, I was just like, man, those are my two sons, and I miss them dearly. And something that I didn't get with our first son was what she did. She talked to my wife, and then she turns to me, and she just asks, like, "How are you doing? How can I support you right now?" I'm like, oh my gosh, nobody's asked me that in the last 3 years. And for the first time in 3 years after two pregnancy losses, I felt like I was part of the conversation. And I never want her to never know how much I appreciated that. I think about that so often. And that's why I wanted to write this book, because I was like, I need I need medical professionals to know, yes, the mother carried the child, the mother lost the child physically, but that father also lost that child as well. And just her saying that to me was like, that's all I needed. I didn't need anything. I didn't need any, like, I didn't need file. I didn't need paperwork. I didn't need like tools or anything. I just needed you to acknowledge me in the room, and that was all I needed. And that stuck with me, and I still think about that. So when we got pregnant with our third child, who we just had recently, she was actually there for one of our ultrasounds, and it was just like so redemptive, because we went back to that same hospital, and all the nurses that we had with Jaden were there for our stay, to the point where one of our nurses that was there after Jaden was born to like postpartum stuff, she actually helped deliver our daughter. And it was so redemptive, and it was amazing. And like, yeah, it was restorative. And I know that's not everybody's story, that they're going to have a child after loss. And I'm not saying that that's going to, and I can never say that that will happen for everybody, because I don't know like that. And I never ever say that to anybody. Like, if they go through a loss, I'm never going to say like, you're going to have a child, or like, just look forward to the next one. Like, that's not helpful, and it's not truth, because I don't know. But for our story, that is where we're at. And I'm so thankful for all of the medical staff that have been through our journey and know us deeply, um, and know our heart behind our story and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh.
our story.
Oh, wow. Thank you for taking me on that ride.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Oh
been
my.
a wild 5 years. Let's just
Yeah.
say that. So
Yeah, seriously. I was furiously writing down all these things, but all of it went out the window because I was just so enwrapped in your story. Um, and I especially love what you said about finally being seen as part of this equation. And I said this earlier, you've said this, like, and this is just reiterated that yes, the woman physically lost the baby, but the dad was part of this too. Dads are every bit as emotionally invested and even physically invested in these lives that are lost, and you all deserve every bit as much support. And there's something else you said, when we were talking about, the things we don't say and how everybody was telling you, like, you have to be there for your wife and you have to make sure you're there supporting her. Who the hell is supporting you?
right.
Right?
Right.
And to any other men listening out there who have been through this or are going through this, you are absolutely worthy of support too. And yes, you should support your wife. And that is a beautiful thing because I'm sure she's going through a hard time, but you deserve support too. Putting that out
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
So,
100%.
real quick, because we're getting towards the end of the episode, but I wanted to touch on something else that you had talked about. I'm like you, I can't keep a secret, especially if it's something really exciting. And I've discussed this with other people on my show, but this kind of mentality of you don't announce a pregnancy until at least the second trimester because of situations with loss. And I full admit I've never had children, I've never been pregnant, so I really have no skin in this game. But if it were me, I would want to tell everybody. So if something did happen, I would have the support you had because you got past that first trimester and you were telling people. But then you just said your house was filled with people on the day of that party. And had you told nobody or this happened prior to all that, you might not, I don't know, unless you just told people this had happened, you might not have had that huge level of support coming in. So I don't know.
And I think everybody's situation is different. Honestly, like I'll just be honest. We like the friends and the support that we have, we did not share our pregnancy about our second son until basically like a week before we delivered him.
Mhm.
And even then people were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Like we know your story. Like it's amazing." So when we lost him, like I said, all those people that we had back in Nebraska, all of those people again rallied behind us.
Oh,
They sent us gift cards for food. They
oh,
came out here to visit us. Like we are extremely blessed to have the community that we have across the US. So when we had our daughter, we didn't announce that we were having a child until after she was born
yeah.
because we didn't want to go through that. And so when I posted like, "Hey, we have a baby now and she's in the NICU," the amount of people that were like sending us messages and being like, "This is the best news ever," and like so many people were just reaching out, just expressing how excited they were for us, and it just felt redemptive, not even just for us, but for all of our people that had to walk through that loss with us, because it's not just the family that loses that child, it's
Yeah.
everybody. Everybody loses a piece of that too. And no matter how close they are with us, like you could tell when those people were there with us grieving that they felt it too.
Mhm.
And it just means so much to have the community that you have, because I know not everybody has that type of community.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Oh my gosh, Jeff, thank you so much for sharing this story and for writing your book. And I'm going to put links to all that in the description.
Yeah,
Before we wrap up, I have a little tradition at the end of every episode where I pull a card at random from have you listened to my podcast at all?
I have. Yes.
Okay. So you know what? You knew it was coming. So we have to pull a card from the death deck and I will let you answer it and then I will answer it. And oh, I love this one. Okay. I love all of them. What can I say? Would you ever consider going old school and having a funeral in your home? A, no, there's no reason that funeral homes were invented for a reason. B, yes, if the service involves an urn, no coffin. Or C, absolutely sounds like a warmer, more personal goodbye.
Yeah, I'd probably say C. Um, like I don't know if I would want to do it in my home per se, but
Right.
I think of like not I hope my parents aren't listening to this, but like if my parents pass away, like I think it would be cool to have it like at my parents' farm,
Oh,
because
yeah.
like especially like I love my parents a lot and I value my parents a lot. And I don't know why I'm getting emotional about that. But like I think of like my dad, for example. If he were to pass away, so they live in the house that he grew up in, and his dad built that house, and so it's just like an honor to him
Yeah.
of saying this is your life, this is where you grew up, this is a part of you, and the impact that you've had on the community and all the people that you've impacted over the years. Like, yeah, I think that'd be really special
Yeah.
to send him off like that. So
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I have a very similar answer with one like little caveat to that. Like if it were me, I would be totally fine to have the funeral right here in the house with my body, everything. That
great,
said, if it would be okay with my husband, because, you know, I'm assuming he would continue living in this house after I'm gone. I don't know. Maybe
great.
that would be too difficult for him to live here knowing that I died here. I don't know. Assuming he's on board, I'm down. If it were him, I'd be okay with doing it here.
Sure. Would it be like a weekend at Bernie's kind of thing where you just like they'd like carry you around and like welcome all the guests?
I would hope so. If anybody knows me,
That's how I would want my funeral to be too.
I have specifically said that I want my funeral to be a roast, and if it is not, then my friends don't know me at all. But I have a background in comedy, so I'm like, I don't care. Taxiderm me and make me into a keg. I don't care. Have fun. Anyway. All right. Jeff, again, thank you so much for sharing your story. I want you to take a moment, tell my listeners the name of your book and where they can find it, and if they can get in contact with you, if that's okay, and how to do all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my book again, I'll show it on the screen here. It's backwards, but it's Holding On to the Light. It's the father's journey through loss and healing. It's available on Amazon. So you just Google it on Amazon, and it will be printed and shipped directly to you. In the back of the book, there is a page that says connect.
Oh,
So
nice.
there's this page that says connect and it has an email address there, which is just holding on to the light book at gmail.com. I specifically made that Gmail account. I'm the only one that has access to it. Um, I specifically made it for people that read this book and want to connect or want to share their story with me or something like that. Um, because I know that there are other fathers out there that want that connection, but they don't know the next steps. And that way I could connect with them, get them the resources that they need, point them in the right direction. That's how I would say that. The last thing I'll say in regards to that, I just need to express this because I want to show how effective it is.
Please.
Um, I had a friend that is the doula up in Indiana. She's got a pretty big following on Instagram. She promoted my book and she said in her video, if you know anybody that would benefit from this book, and you can send it to them and say it's from me, or you can be anonymous. And somebody took her up on that, and they sent an anonymous copy to a gal and her husband. I've never met this couple in my life. Never have no idea who they are. And I get a random message from her about a week after she read it, and she said, "You don't know me, but we just lost our son in December. This is back in March." She's like, "We just lost our son in December, and your book was so impactful for both my husband and I. And this is the first book that my husband has read in over a decade." And he was so thankful for this book because it was the first time that he's actually felt like he's been seen by somebody
Yeah.
and was able to put his emotions into words. And she's like, "I just wanted to thank you for that." That was like, that's why I wrote this book. And so I always love sharing that story because it just is like, if that's the impact that it has on people, like I just want it to reach the right audience,
Yeah.
to be able to have that impact and be a resource for anybody that needs it.
Amazing. Jeff, thank you. And hopefully, if anybody listening to this knows of a couple that has been through this and knows of a man who might need this type of support or would benefit from reading this book, reach out to me. I'll help you out with that. Get a copy. I'll put the links in the description. I want people to have the support that they need. So, and I want men to feel less alone in this loss because you are deserving of support too. So, Jeff, thank you so much. I really appreciate you telling your story on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. Another huge, huge thank you to J.S. Loving for coming on my show and bravely sharing his story and his experience with grief and the loss of his children. And yeah, that was a rough one, but a good one. And please go check out his book. I have links to all of his stuff in the description. I read his book. I bought a few copies to gift to, I've mentioned several times on the show, I'm on the board of directors for a nonprofit here in Central Ohio that provides support for women who have experienced miscarriage and pregnancy loss. But now we have this amazing book to help their spouses or significant others or any other men in their life who might be dealing with grief of miscarriage as well. So please go check that out. Buy a copy of his book. Keep it on hand, gift it to a man who might need it. And yeah, thank you again so much for tuning in this week. As always, you can find me at nikkithedeathdoula.com. If you would like to share a story of your loss, please reach out to me. I would love to have you on the show. There's a whole page on my website dedicated to this podcast. I've got links to the books of the authors I've had on my show, websites. There's links to the merch if you want. Again, you can get this awesome notebook, t-shirt, stickers. And another great way to get this notebook, again, is to come support me over at patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula. It would be a huge help to me. But that is all. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. And remember, as always, your grief is yours, your feelings are valid, and grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.